They say, hey, Jesus comes to these disciples and says, hey guys, I just want you to know this. Some guys are going to come. They're going to betray me. They're going to eventually kill me. They're going to crucify me for something I didn't even do. And I'm going to rise from the grave. I'm going to conquer sin. I'm going to defeat death. And from now on, people, all types of people, Jewish people, Gentiles people, will be able to come into a relationship with me because of what is going to happen. I mean, that is a huge spiritual truth that Christ just revealed to his 12 disciples. Now, at this point, this 24-hour period, this day that the disciples had, this is a crazy day, right? They first started off their day. They had this big argument with the Pharisees, right? Jesus comes in. Jesus heals this boy who was demon-possessed from a young age. He heals him. People are astonished. They're amazed. And then they go away, and Jesus says, hey, just so you know, if you want to heal a demon like that, you need to pray. So they learn that. And then Jesus takes them away to another city and says, hey, guys, just so you know, someone's going to betray me. And then they're going to kill me. But I'm going to rise from the dead. And you would think these 12 disciples, kind of like at the end of the day when you kind of talk with your family and you kind of discuss what happened that day, you would think that they would be discussing that miracle. You think that they would be discussing the fact that they just had this big religious debate with the Pharisees. You think that they would be discussing this truth that Jesus just revealed to them on that day. But they weren't discussing that. In fact, it says this in verse 32. But they did not understand what Jesus meant, and they were afraid to ask him about it. So they kept quiet. They didn't say anything. It's like when you're in school and you're in a calculus class, right, and you don't know how to do the problem, but you don't want to raise your hand because you don't want people to look at you and be like, that guy doesn't get it? What? You know, you don't want that to happen. So it's the same thing. They don't want to say, Jesus, what are you talking about? Because they didn't want to be embarrassed. They were afraid to ask him what he meant. Now, here's what happens. So they're in the city of Galilee. They decide to leave the city, and they're going to go to a place called Capernaum, okay? Now, when they go to Capernaum, Jesus is going to teach them a lesson, right? But I love this because this is where the humanness and the human nature factor of the disciples really comes into play, and this is where, for you and I, we really see ourselves in this story, okay? Here it goes. Verse 33. They came to Capernaum, so they left Galilee, came down there, and now when he was in the house, they were hanging out in the house, he asked his disciples a question. Here's the question. He said, what were you arguing about on that road back there? What were you debating about? What were you arguing about with each other? And this is one of those questions that Jesus, I mean, he's God's son, right? I mean, he's fully human, but he's also fully God. It's one of those questions where you're like, come on, I mean, Jesus knows what they were talking about. It's one of those questions that you ask as a parent, right? Like when your kid is at home by themselves and you left them there and there's no one else there. And you come home and there's like a big stain on the carpet, right? And you go and you ask your kid, hey Johnny, how'd this happen? They're like, I don't know. I don't know. It just happened. I think something happened. The fridge opened and boom, I mean, this milk was floating and then it just spilled. And it's one of those kind of things like you know the answer as a parent, but you just want them to come clean, right? You just want them to be honest and to say, hey, this is what happened. And so Jesus, he's doing the same thing. He's saying, hey guys, what were you guys arguing about on that road back there from Galilee to Capernaum? What were you debating? What were you discussing? Verse 34. But they kept quiet, right? Just like you kids do. Because on the way to Capernaum, they had argued about who was the greatest disciple of all. Right? You see yourself here, right? I mean, this is a guy thing especially, that they're comparing themselves with each other. That they're having a conversation after they had just seen a miracle, after they had just had a big religious encounter with the Pharisees, after Jesus had just revealed a huge truth that they didn't understand, and they're talking about who's the best. Who's the best prayer? Who did Jesus love the most? Who can do the best miracles, right? Like, who do people look at and say, I want to be like that disciple? You're just like you and me and the way that they think. Because what's happening here is this, is that they have grown up in a Roman society that has taught them from a very, very, very young age that if you want to be successful, if you want to be great in life, then it's all about having honor and prestige and money. And you know, if people dedicate statues to you and if people lift your name up on high, then you're considered great and successful. And so they have this in their mindset. They have this in their hearts. And so they're going around and they're like, I think I'm better than you. I think Jesus loves me more. I think I'm the best disciple of all. But I love what Jesus does here, because here's what happens. He understands what's going on here. And Jesus could be like, just go off and yell at him and knock stuff over. I mean, he could respond in a variety of ways, but Jesus chooses to respond in a way that only Jesus does. And he doesn't address the fact that they didn't admit to him that they were arguing about who's the greatest, but he just addresses the issue at hand here. And here's the issue at hand. What does it look like for you, and what does it look like for those disciples to be great in the eyes of God? What does it look like for those disciples and for you and me and every human being on this earth? What does it look like for us to be great and successful in this life on this planet? And so he goes on and he gives us the answer. Here it is, verse 35. So sitting down, Jesus called his 12 disciples, and he said this: if anybody wants to be first, then he must be what? The very last and the servant of all. He goes, hey, disciples, just so you know, you think you're great. You think that all these earthly things that you're doing are making you successful in this life. I got to tell you something. According to me and according to my Father in heaven, success and greatness in this life has nothing to do with being rich, has nothing to do with having a lot of friends, it has nothing to do with looking the part and having the right outfit and having the right body type. It has nothing to do with being really good or really talented at what you do. But success in this lifetime is all about you being last and you serving other people for me. What an amazing truth he just revealed to his disciples. And I love that because they were so engulfed in their culture. They did just what we do. They allowed their culture to determine and dictate what greatness and what success was. And Jesus is like, no. Don't miss this. If you want to be great in my eyes, because that's all that really matters, right? If you want to be great according to God, then you go serve other people. Then you go put yourself behind other people. Then you go and you do what I'm asking you to do, because that's how you achieve success and greatness as a follower of Christ. There's a story that I kind of want to tell you to illustrate what we're talking about here, and it's a story that I love because it's about a 12-year-old boy, all right? Okay. Most people, when you think about a 12-year-old boy, you think about a few things. You think they smell, probably, because they're not really into deodorant yet. You think that they're loud, and they like to stay up late at night, and they eat candy, and they're just hyper, and that's kind of your picture the majority of the time of a 12-year-old boy. But I love this story about this boy named Austin, and they're going to throw his picture up on the screen for you there. There's Austin. This is actually Austin today, so he's about 14 now, but when he was 12 years old, Austin was at church, right? And he saw a DVD of an orphan boy in Africa, okay? Now, he saw this DVD of this orphan boy, and he saw how this orphan boy had literally nothing. No house, nowhere to lay his head at night, not much food at all. And so he saw this boy, and in his heart, he began to develop compassion for orphans in Africa. But unlike you and unlike me, a lot of times we see something that touches our heart, and we kind of go off in our life and we forget about it. But he couldn't drop it. He couldn't forget about it. I mean, all he could think about was this orphan boy that he saw, and he felt like God was telling him to do something about it. And so Austin had this great idea. He did some research, and he found out that during his average school day, in which he goes to school and goes to class, that 2,057 kids throughout the world become orphans. Through like a 7-hour period, 2,057 kids throughout the world become orphans. And he heard this number, and he got this great idea, and he called this idea Hoops of Hope. And what he did was he loved basketball, and so he's like, I'm going to do something with basketball, something I love, and I'm going to do something to help out these orphans in Africa. And so he went around, and he asked his mom and dad, hey, mom and dad, I saw this video, and he explained kind of what he wanted to do, and he basically wanted to go around and ask people that he knew, friends, family members, people he didn't even know, if they would sponsor him when he was going to go and shoot 2,057 free throws to represent the number of kids that became orphans during his school day. And so he wanted people to sponsor him, right? Just say, hey, give me $1, give me $5, give me a quarter for each free throw, whatever. And so he went around, and in the year that he did this, the first year, he did this all by himself. Remember, this is a 12-year-old boy, 6th grade probably. He went around, and he raised $3,000 for orphans in Africa. That's incredible, right? Well, the story gets better. The next year, he wanted to do it again, right? because he understood that it wasn't a one-time thing, right? This is his life. God called him to do this. God said, I want you to help out these orphans. So he's like, this isn't a one-time thing. I'm going to do this with my life. So the next year, he went out and he was going to do the same thing. But the people that sponsored him, they're like, hey, I want to do it with you. Can we do it? Can we go get sponsors? He's like, yeah. And so over the last 2 years, people have been joining in on this effort with Austin, and they have raised, his organization, Hoops of Hope, by the way, he's only 14 years old now, he's 12 at the time, they've raised $450,000